to another session of the Product Management View webinar series. Before our speaker starts today, I've got just a few housekeeping details that I'd like to share with our listeners. All listeners have a muted line. If you have a question to our speaker about his presentation or any issues with how you're viewing the presentation itself, please go to the question and answer section on the webinar control panel at the right-hand side of your screen. Our presenter today has opened himself up for questions throughout the entirety of the presentation, so please feel free to type in the questions as you have them, and the presenter will answer them as we move along through the presentation. I would like to now welcome you once more to the Product Management View webinar series. I'm Chelsea Woodhead from Rima Technology Solutions, one of the sponsors of this webinar series, and I'll be your moderator. It is my pleasure to introduce James Shore, who will be giving the presentation Maximizing Value with Agile Release Planning during today's webinar. James is a consultant, author, and speaker. He brings the rare combination of business savvy, deep technical understanding, and an engaging presentation style to his work, putting him in demand around the world. James is a prominent figure in the Agile community. He is an inaugural recipient of the prestigious Gordon Pask Award for contributions to Agile practice and one of the first 10 people to sign the newly released Agile Manifesto in 2001. James keeps a blog at jamesshore.com and is the author of the acclaimed book, The Art of Agile Development. I'm now going to give James presenter status, and with no further ado, take it away, James.
Thank you, Chelsea. I want to show you something cool. Let's assume that we have, Let's assume that we have two projects that we're working on simultaneously. And we're working on them simultaneously, and for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to assume that there's no cost of task switching. Although that is actually not at all true. DeMarco calls task switching an important productivity reduction technique. But for the purpose of this demo, let's assume there's no cost. Here's what happens. We work on one project for a month, and then we work on the other project for a month. Then we work on the first project for a month, and the second project for a month, and the third project for a month, and we release it. Each of these projects takes 3 months. And then we work on the second project for a month, and we release that. And then finally, at the end of the 7th month, we've made $6 billion, whatever that is. Now here's the cool part. Let's take the exact same team, exact same productivity, and all we're going to do is we're just going to work on one project at a time. So we work on the first project for 3 months and release it. And then we work on the second project for 3 months and release it. And at the end of the 7th month, we've made 2 months of extra money or value or whatever it is that the software is getting you. Now, it looks like we're making twice as much, but that's not actually true. As you continue going out, that proportionally the difference will become smaller, but you'll always have 2 extra months of value just by working on one project at a time. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about 5 ways to increase value using Agile release planning. And they are, first, work on one project at a time, release early and often, adapt your plans, keep your options open, and plan at the last responsible moment. I have them in order from the obvious to the less obvious, the simple to the complex, the easy to the hard. But even the simple techniques have challenges, and I'll be talking about those challenges too. For example, working on one project at a time is kind of a no-brainer, or I think it should be, but there's so many companies that don't do it. And I think one of the reasons for that is that when you work on just one project at a time, there is this issue of perceived responsiveness. In other words, if you've got people breathing down your neck saying, what's going on with my project, it's a lot easier to say, hey, we're working on it, even though that doesn't actually make you more responsive. If you look at this example, the second case, where you're working on one project at a time, best case, you're releasing earlier. Worst case, you're releasing at the same time. So it doesn't make you more responsive. Working on projects simultaneously doesn't make you actually more responsive, but it makes you seem more responsive. It can be a tough sell to tell people, well, we're going to get to your project, but just wait 3 months. We're not going to touch it until then. And one way to deal with that is to have somebody on your team who's assigned to work with those people and support them, and if they have ongoing support,